To South Korea are back. It's been over 2 years since China started restricting group tours to the country. Now a group of around 6,000 tourists have come on a company incentive tour. The White House is reportedly reaching out to North Korea about holding more talks in Sweden on denuclearization. And a top U.S. official says he's optimistic that the talks will happen. And we take a look at the issue of automation and concerns that robots and artificial intelligence will start taking over more and more jobs. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The Trump administration is reaching out to North Korea about holding more talks in Stockholm on denuclearization. The Swedish capital is where the two sides held working-level talks last October. Citing U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, U.S.-based internet news outlet Axios reported Sunday that the administration has been letting North Korea know through various channels that they'd like to get negotiations back on track to help the North work towards abandoning its nuclear weapons. O'Brien also said that he was cautiously optimistic since the North Korean leader has not yet delivered the ominous Christmas gift he promised. The report said President Trump seems to be relying on his friendly personal relationship with Kim Jong-un to restart the talks. The top diplomats of South Korea and the U.S. will hold talks on Tuesday in San Francisco. South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa and her U.S. counterpart Mike Pompeo will discuss denuclearization and peace on the Korean peninsula, as well as ways to further develop their alliance. They're also expected to share views on escalating tensions in the Middle East. There's speculation that the U.S. will ask South Korea to join a U.S.-led initiative to safeguard the Strait of Hormuz near Iran. Another issue could be how to share the cost of American troops stationed in South Korea, because on the same day in Washington, the two sides will be holding a sixth meeting on a special measures agreement. That meeting will be attended by South Korea's chief negotiator, Jung Eun-bo, and his American counterpart, James DeHart. Protests in Iran continued on Sunday after the government admitted that it had mistakenly shot down a Ukrainian airliner. They're angry not only about the crash, but that the government apparently lied about it for days. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The group of protesters outside a university in Tehran could be heard chanting, "They're lying that our enemy is America. Our enemy is right here." The angry gathering was just one part of a nationwide demonstration that erupted for a second straight day in Iran on Sunday, as Iranians continue to raise the stakes on their under-fire leadership. Their fury stems from the Iranian military admitting early Saturday that it had mistakenly shot down a Ukrainian passenger plane, killing all 176 people on board. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it accepted full responsibility for the downing. The head of the Aerospace Division said the plane was mistaken for a U.S. cruise missile at a time when Iran's air defenses were on high alert. Iran's foreign minister said it was human error caused by what he called U.S. adventurism. However, it seems the protesters weren't buying their leader's excuses and are furious that the plane was shot down, even unintentionally, and that the government lied about it for days. Adding to the turmoil, Britain's ambassador to Iran, Rob McCair, was arrested shortly after attending a vigil for the victims of the plane crash, only to be released after 3 hours. The semi-official Tasnim news agency, which is affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard, claimed the ambassador was in the midst of the rally, accusing him of trying to organize, instigate, and direct some radical and destructive actions. U.S. President Donald Trump took to Twitter on Sunday and warned Iran against killing protesters who are taking a stand against the regime. He added the U.S. is watching the situation and the Iranian government should stop preventing the media reporting the truth. While the U.S. drone killing Iran's top military official in Baghdad earlier this month sparked a wave of anti-American protests, the plane crash prompted some of the protesters over the weekend to tear up pictures of the slain general. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Iraqi military bases hosting U.S. personnel were hit by rockets on Sunday, wounding 4 Iraqi troops. No group has claimed responsibility. The Iraqi military said on Sunday that 8 rockets landed at an airbase just north of Baghdad that hosts American trainers, advisors, and contractors. The attack came just days after Iran launched a missile attack on 2 bases in Iraq that house U.S. forces. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a tweet that he was outraged and called on the government of Iraq to hold those responsible for the attack accountable. President Moon Jae-in is preparing for his New Year's press conference on Tuesday, which will be attended by over 200 local and foreign reporters. It's scheduled for 90 minutes, starting at 10 a.m. on January 14th. The president himself is expected to choose reporters to ask him questions, a format also used during last year's event. According to the presidential spokesperson, the press conference will be an opportunity for the president to explain his policy direction for 2020 and his thoughts on North Korea-related diplomacy, the economy, and political matters. Arirang TV will be broadcasting the press conference live in English. A volcano in the Philippines has sprayed a massive plume of ash into the skies near Manila. Lava has since been seen flowing out of it as the authorities warn of a possibly hazardous eruption in the coming hours or days. Yoon Jung-min has the latest.
A small volcano near the Philippine capital Manila erupted on Sunday, pumping a massive cloud of ash and smoke into the sky. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology said the Taal volcano, located 60 kilometers south of Manila, spewed steam, ash, and pebbles up to 15 kilometers into the sky. The institute raised the danger level around the volcano to level 4 out of a maximum of 5, which means a hazardous eruption may happen within hours or days. No injuries or damage have been reported so far, but more than 6,000 people living in the danger zone have been evacuated.
When the volcano released steam, we ran away up here. The road was crowded, thick ash and pebbles were falling.
Nearby airports, including Manila's International Airport, were closed on Sunday because of the ash. Government buildings and schools were also closed in affected towns. Ashfall was reported in towns several kilometers away from the volcano, and residents have been advised to stay indoors or wear masks and goggles. Taal is one of the world's smallest volcanoes, but it has strong explosive power. Authorities also warned that a powerful eruption could cause a volcanic tsunami and raise an alert for nearby residents and those in other regions. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
NASA has welcomed 11 new astronauts to its ranks, and one of them is Korean-American Jonny Kim. As a U.S. Navy lieutenant and resident physician, Kim is set to start the most exciting chapter of his life. Kan Young-woo reports.
Korean-American Jonny Kim is now ready to explore space. After more than 2 years of training at NASA, Kim and 10 others have graduated the agency's program to be eligible for missions to the International Space Station, as well as potential missions to the Moon and Mars.
What I hope to be able to contribute to leave behind is the foundation for future explorers to come to the moon as a staging area for further research, for further resource gathering, to be able to launch and explore even further.
Born and raised in Los Angeles, Kim is a U.S. Navy lieutenant and a resident physician in emergency medicine. He was also a Navy SEAL who completed more than 100 combat operations while earning a Silver Star and Bronze Star with Combat V. During the graduation ceremony at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston last Friday, Kim shared some advice for those who want to follow in his footsteps.
Space exploration is a human endeavor, and we need talented, good human beings to make this happen. So if you're watching this, know and you have a knack for the outdoors and for the challenges of the unknown and working together in a small team, then you might have a spot here.
According to NASA, it selected Kim and the other astronauts from an initial pool of more than 18,000 candidates. During their training, the latest crop of astronauts trained on systems used in space stations learned how to use complex robotics and simulated spacewalking. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
Around 5,000 Chinese tourists arrived in South Korea last week for a 6-day group tour. Now, that might not sound like news, but in fact, it's the biggest corporate tour to South Korea since China imposed retaliatory measures against Seoul for deploying the U.S. anti-missile system THAAD in 2017. Lee Kyung-eun has this report.
At the Korean folk village in Yongin, just south of Seoul, groups of Chinese tourists are filtering in one at a time. With hundreds of Chinese tourists descending on the tourist hotspot, the village is suddenly a hive of activity. In fact, this group is only a small part of an even bigger group that visited South Korea together. Some 5,000 employees from Chinese health food company Yongtang made the short trip over the West Sea for their firm's corporate incentive tour. It took 40 flights to bring them over from 10 different cities across China. They used more than 1,000 rooms in multiple hotels in Incheon during their 6-day stay, which wrapped up on Sunday. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, the group is expected to have generated some $1.4 million for the local economy. However, this tour has a bigger positive impact for the local tourism industry besides its immediate economic effect. It is the biggest incentive tour South Korea has emitted from China since 2017, when Beijing imposed retaliatory measures against Seoul over its deployment of the U.S. anti-missile system THAAD. It also follows one last month when 3,300 employees from a Chinese cosmetic company visited South Korea. While group visa applications are still banned in most parts of China, except for 6 cities, the gradual inflow of tour group again is boosting optimism in South Korea's tourism industry.
The number of people on incentive tours dipped as low as 13,000 in 2017, but it has been steadily recovering, reaching 39,000 in 2018 and almost 100,000 last year. It's on an upswing.
Based on these signs of recovery, the South Korean government is expecting an even bigger jump this year as it pledges to facilitate incentive tours by developing new content for visitors and enhancing regional tourism. Last year, nearly 6 million Chinese tourists came to South Korea, up 27% on year, and that trend has continued at the start of 2020. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
Of the people in South Korea who are unemployed, those in their late 20s made up a bigger proportion of them than in any country in the OECD for a 7th straight year in 2018. According to the OECD on Monday, people aged between 25 and 29 made up around 22% of all the unemployed people in the country, a much higher proportion than in Germany and Japan. Experts point out that such a high jobless rate among those in their late 20s reflects young job seekers' willingness to continue to hunt for jobs with high pay rather than accept a lower paying job. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news as we start the week. And for that, I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Dr. Yang, thank you for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, the tensions between the U.S. and Iran have eased somewhat, and the China trade deal will be signed this week. So generally, the markets have been gaining. Tell us about that and how long you think this rally might go on.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, the two biggest factors are probably the reduction of tension between U.S. and Iran, and the first stage deal between U.S. and China dealing with the trade war. The couple of problems, though, is that while the market tends to be euphoric over these good news, it's not quite clear whether it'll be clear sailing. The U.S. and Iran, they sort of both agreed that they would calm down, that they would not make problems worse, but I think everyone probably agrees that the tension between the U.S. and Iran has not disappeared. It's just that both sides are taking a look at a longer view, and there will be probably some kind of retaliation by Iran. We're not sure what form it'll take, but hopefully it will not be too violent, but market is taking at least the calming effect very well. And then there's the signing of the U.S.-China trade deal, the first stage deal, that's due on the 15th, though there is some indication. President Trump has tweeted that the actual signing may be a day or two after the 15th. And there has been a lot of speculation on why this deal is being delayed after President Trump has emphasized the date of the 15th. My feeling is that even at the announcement of this first stage deal on December 13th, there has been a lot of speculation on whether the deal was actually done or whether they were still negotiating some of the details. If you look at the agreement, that the first stage agreement that the USTR and President Trump has mentioned, it details a lot of measures that will take place with China buying more U.S. goods, protection of intellectual property, restrictions on technology transfer, measures on financial services, agriculture, and currency. But some of the details have not been presented in the USTR fact sheet, and a lot of the details were not coming out, including exactly how much China was going to buy from the United States. So it might be some final details that are being worked out right now between high-level officials of China and U.S., which accounts for some of the delays. And given that, though, the rally should continue at least for a few days, I think. While some of the news that's coming out from the U.S., like the last labor job creation report, has not been good, the market tends to be over-enthusiastic, over-optimistic about the news coming out from U.S.-China trade war, and this should have a calming effect on the market. And because while the employment rate and manufacturing news has not been good for the United States, the main cause of that was actually President Trump's uncertain economic policies and U.S.-China trade war. So if these two factors are settled, then it addresses a lot of the issues that the stock market was worried about.
Indeed, and it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts when the details on the trade deal do come out. But here in the Korean market, foreign investors are net buyers again for the first time in 5 months. Gains here too the past week or so. What's the story in the Korean markets?
Okay, well, Kospi rose 1.04% today. Kosdaq rose by 0.92% today. Kospi was led by foreign investors. Kosdaq was led by individual Korean investors. And I think we're seeing an effect of a lot of good news that came up over the end of last week and today. For example, Samsung had higher than expected earnings of 7.5 trillion won, which was nearly trillion won over market expectations. The exports for the first 10 days of January was 5.3% over the first 10 days of last year. And both of these factors were led by semiconductors. And the analysts believe that the recovery of the semiconductors are crucial if Korea is going to have a good growth this year. So these are some optimistic news. Now, the trade account that I was talking about, the first 10 days of January, Korea did record a trade deficit, but that's because higher prices of oil imports. But the reduction of tensions between Iran and U.S. means that the oil prices are likely to fall back down. And we've already seen some indications that it is going to remain, oil prices are going to remain low. So that is probably not going to be a longer-term problem. So there has been nothing but good news for the last couple of days, and that accounts for, I think, Korean stock recovery today.
All right, Professor Young, and just before we go, tell us about a few things we should be watching in the week ahead.
Okay, Korean statistics. We have two big ones and two mid-level importance. On Wednesday, we have December employment numbers. We'll have to see whether there has been a recovery in the number of full-time jobs. And on Friday, we have the Bank of Korea Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Virtually everyone believes that Bank of Korea will hold the funds at 1.25%, but we'll have to wait and see. And then the two mid-level ones for Korea, there will be new government regulation for jeonse, which everyone is concerned about because of the government's housing and real estate pricing policies. And then Ministry of Economy and Finance will announce economic trends for January at the end of the week, and that will show how the government sees the current economic situation and what the future policy consideration will be. And as far as foreign statistics are concerned, China will announce trade account and industrial production this week. We'll see how well the China economy is doing at the beginning of the year. And U.S. Consumer Price Index and the Beige Book report, that's the Fed's view of the state of U.S. economy, will also come out this week. So we'll see how the largest two economies are doing at the beginning of the year and what their policy consideration is likely to be for the early part of the year.
All right, Professor Yang, we'll be watching all of those stories. Thanks so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you.
Now, one of the most pressing issues these days is whether automation will one day take away our jobs. The issue has been the center of a heated debate in the lead up to this year's U.S. presidential election. Our Oh Young reports from Las Vegas, one of the cities that's at risk of seeing human workers replaced by machines.
Are robots taking away our jobs? The issue is real here in Las Vegas. Recent data suggests 33% of the city's workers could lose their jobs due to automation, the highest rate of any major US city. The most at risk are low-paid workers such as cashiers and servers.
That's 1 in 3 workers at risk right here along the Strip, which hosts the city's iconic casinos, countless hotels and bars and fast food restaurants. Could we really see the thousands of workers here being replaced by robots?
This is Vegas, so we'll go to a bar and find out. At the Tipsy Robot, 2 bartender bots are working fast, taking orders for a wide selection of cocktails and non-alcoholic beverages, as well as customized drinks. Your drink is measured and poured with precision in brisk angled movements, almost like a dance. And that's when it's not dancing for the customers. The bar is unsurprisingly one of the coolest in Vegas. But where does that place the human bartender? Presidential candidate Andrew Yang has blamed the Tipsy Robot for the loss of human jobs. But the bar's owner says the opposite is true.
We're not here to try to take jobs or whatever. We're trying to offer a unique experience to our customers. And no better place than Las Vegas. We are proud to say that with 2 robotic arms, we created 10 jobs.
And a lot of the times customers still want to come and they still want to have like that social human interaction. So, just telling us about their day, asking like, what are some good things to do in Vegas on the Strip?
But most servers in Las Vegas don't feel so reassured. The city's Culinary Workers Union has been campaigning to safeguard their livelihoods.
We need to have a language in our contract where we can protect our job. We know technology is something we cannot stop, but they had to notify the union. And notify the union, and before implement, they had to be 180 days. Any job who's coming and whatever is going to be affected, they had to give the opportunity to the worker to have free training.
These concerns are not unique to culinary staff or to Las Vegas.
Artificial intelligence very often targets a specific task, a specific type of job. But once it's available, it can replace many people in that particular profession. So we need to be aware that whole groups of people will be set free almost at the same time. Preparing cushioning that allows them to get the additional education in order to find new jobs will be absolutely crucial.
Automation is inevitably transforming industries, jobs and lives. But whether it's for better or for worse, it needs to be addressed globally. Oh Young, Arirang News, Las Vegas.
The Minister of SMEs and Startups, Park Young-sun, has become the first South Korean cabinet minister to join the Board of Trustees for the World Economic Forum. According to a press release by the ministry on Monday, Pak has been offered a position on the board for the annual meeting hosted by the World Economic Forum, which takes place in Davos, Switzerland from next Tuesday to Friday. The forum brings together the world's top leaders to shape global agendas for the coming year. South Korean business leaders, including the senior vice president of Hyundai Motor Group and the president of SK Group, will take part in the forum. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.